Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss about the history of corporations. So before going ahead, let's see what are the topic we are going to study in this chapter. In the history of corporation, we are going to study early history of corporations, joint stock companies, introduction of Bubble Act, impact of industrial revolution on the corporations, joint stock companies act and limited liability concept. Companies in the 14th century existed in the forms of the business guild. What is the business guild? Business guilds had fewer resemblance with the companies and they were moreover like the trade protection associations as you could see them existing nowadays. The members of these business guilds had the right to participate in the trade, but what was the biggest problem with these business guilds that they often lacked a proper system of governance. In other words, you can say that these business guilds, of course, they had existed for the traders, and these business guilds they had played a key role at that time in the trade, but they had lacked a generally accepted system of governance. It was the time when the English government was coming with various types of policy considerations, and the government of England at that time had sought to make England a center of world trade, and it started achieving the task by introducing various sorts of regulations with regard to the corporations also. What is the Royal Charter? You can find a standard description about the Royal Charter on the Privy Council website. Incorporation by charter is a prestigious way of acquiring legal personality and reflects the higher status of the body. The authority for the grant of the Royal Charter comes from the royal prerogative, that is to say, the grant is made by the sovereign. A Royal Charter is an instrument of incorporation which is granted by the Queen, which confers an independent legal personality on an organization and defines its objective, constitution, and powers to govern its own affairs. Whenever we hear about the first European corporations, war and colonialism hit our mind. These early corporations carried their trade through the sea lanes, and European powers struggled with each other to dominate these sea lanes. Ship-to-ship battle was common in the course of the voyage. The profits were distributed among the members of the company after every successful voyage. These corporations had spread throughout the world at that time with the purpose of trade initially, but later they had developed their own colonies there, and the European powers had conflicted for the dominance in those territories. It was actually the war for the territories. Now coming back to the Royal Charter, the terms and conditions of each charter are were different depending on the individual requirements of the type of organization that is being incorporated. The Royal Charter had provided monopoly to trade over a specified territory. In other words, the newly incorporated companies enjoyed an exclusive right to enter into trade agreement with a foreign territory. The profits of these companies were distributed among all the stakeholders after the voyages if the voyages have been successful or it has been peaceful. My friends, East India Company was one of these companies which came to trade in India, and later whatever happened, it was merely the history. The same happened with the other companies, for example, South Sea companies. It went to trade into the West Indian territory, the territory which were situated around the South American seas. That company was known as South Seas. For the purpose of getting the knowledge, you can read the case study about the South Seas Company. Let's move to the next topic now, that is the joint stock companies. So we all know what is the meaning of the joint stock company. In 1653, which was a very important year for the companies as far as the companies are concerned, or the legal history of the corporations are concerned. So in 1653, the joint stock company was introduced, which contained a permanent fund to carry on the business. And such kind of companies had fixed capital. And because of this, soon these companies were able to establish the fixed capital, which were represented by the freely transferable shares. And because of such kind of feature, the joint stock companies soon became very popular among the business persons, because now it was easy to incorporate more and more number of persons into the companies, and it led to a greater expansion of the corporations. But as far as the procedural difficulties were concerned, they were still existing. A company was still being incorporated by the Royal Charter, uh, which was the most important procedural difficulty in incorporating the companies, I would say. And the membership in the companies had, of course, increased, but it has increased without a proper framework of the governance. So what we lack in the companies at that time, that these companies had either no or very lesser amount of corporate governance framework, and because of this it was very difficult to impose the accountability on the directors, or you can say the trustees of the companies who were running the companies at that time. As far as the companies were concerned, they were managed by few trustees only, and because of the lack of corporate governance framework, they were not necessarily concerned about the safety of the investors' money. But till that time, there was the separation between ownership and management had existed. The company had the separate capital than its members. So many spurious companies were incorporated with the motive only to steal the public money. So these spurious company, what is the meaning of a spurious company? The spurious companies at that time, they just got incorporated for the sake of stealing the public money. These companies did not have any serious kind of business. Rather, they had existed only on the paper. And the uh, later the country, that is England, experienced the flood of such kind of fraudulent companies. So it was a big threat for the safety of investors' money and for the development of the corporate form itself. So in order to prevent this situation, in 1720, the English Parliament had introduced the Bubble Act, which declared the business of such fake companies illegal. So Bubble Act came and it played its own role, but we can say that as far as the Bubble Act concerned, so it proved to be inadequate given the scenario there, because it had provided nothing to regulate the company's administration in a lawful manner. and the act was very much deficient to provide a system of governance within the corporate setup. As I have been stressing in this class that previously the companies had lacked the corporate governance. So the Bubble Act was introduced in order to curb these fake companies, in order to check the spread of these fake companies, in order to protect the investors' money. But whether it proved to be sufficient, the answer is no. It could not fill up the gap because the problem had arisen because of the lack of the corporate governance, and still there is no corporate governance framework in this system. So the Bubble Act had proved to be insufficient, inadequate as far as its objectives are concerned. Let's move to the next topic. The next topic is the Industrial Revolution. In 1825, the Bubble Act was repealed, and the history of corporations saw a major change after 1820 because of the onset of the Industrial Revolution. Because of the Industrial Revolution, the industrial activities had gathered pace. There was a spurt in the industrial activities. The manual labor had been replaced by the machines. There was the increase in demand of the goods and commodity. There was the increased manufacturing activity. So of course, for the purpose of doing all these things, you needed new companies, and the more efficient mechanism for incorporating the new companies were felt by the policy makers. Going ahead, the Joint Stock Companies Act 1844. In 1844, by virtue of the initiatives taken by Gladstone, the then President of the Board of Trade, the English Parliament had passed the Joint Stock Companies Act 1844. So, what were the major features of the Joint Stock Companies Act? By virtue of this act, one Office of Registrar of Companies was established, and you know how important is the Office of Registrar. It had facilitated the public participation in creation of the business corporations. Establishing of a joint stock companies by mere registration now, because now you do not need to obtain the royal charter or sanctioned by a special act of parliament. So now you see, by virtue of the Joint Stock Companies Act, it was possible for anybody to incorporate a company by just completing certain procedure. We have discussed about the procedural difficulties attached with the royal charter, and it is also true that the royal charter for establishing the corporations were available for a privileged class of England only. But now, since the Office of Registrar was existing because of the Joint Stock Companies Act 1844, so it was possible for anybody to register a new companies by just completing certain procedures. So it was not establishing the company was no longer privilege of a particular class. Rather, it became available, it was available for any business person in England now. Under the Joint Stock Companies Act, it was mandatory for all the companies to file the annual return and the particular or of the constitution of the companies. Going ahead, the Limited Liability Act 1855. By this act, the companies registered under the Joint Stock Companies Act 1844 were able to limit the members' liability regarding the company's debts and obligations, which I would say the feature of limited liability is the most important feature of the modern corporation, and it was introduced by the Limited Liability Act 1855. What is the meaning of limited liability? The meaning of limited liability is that in the case of any bankruptcy, the creditors of the company, they cannot attach the personal property of the members as it happens in the case of partnership. So as far as the company is concerned, company is a separate legal entity. It has its own assets. It has its own capital. It is a separate personality as far as the company law jurisprudence is concerned. So if the bankruptcy is taking place, it is the company which is going to be bankrupt, and the members' property, the members' personal property, like their business and their house, their land and building, they are going to be completely safe from any kind of claim made by the creator of the company. Later, Joint Stock Companies Act 1856 was introduced, and it had replaced both of the act, that is the Limited Liability Act 1855 and the Joint Stock Companies Act 1844. The Companies Act 1856, it was the earliest version of the modern company law, and it had provided many features, many requirements, many procedures for the companies which are existing even today. For example, it had provided the requirement of minimum number of membership, at least 7 persons by subscribing to the memorandum of the company could establish a company with limited or unlimited liability. The memorandum of association and articles of association were recognized as the two most important fundamental legal documents for the formation of the companies. The companies limited by the guarantee was also introduced by this act, and one of the major development which came by this particular act, that it had provided a detailed procedure of the winding up of the companies. Dear students, you should always keep in mind that it is very easy to incorporate a company, but as far as the winding of the company is concerned, it is really a very difficult task. Just think about a company like Reliance Industries or Tata. God forbid, for example, the RIL has to go into winding up today. RIL, the Reliance Industries Limited, for example, suppose it has decided to wind up its business. So, can you understand the kind of hardship it is going to incorporate, it is going to constitute? Because you see, once the company has done the business for 10 years, 20 years, or 30 years, or for 50 years, okay, so it it must have expanded. It may have hundreds of thousands of employees and the stakeholders and shareholders, and in the case of winding up, you will have to satisfy the claim of each and every person. So as far as the winding up is concerned, winding up is not an easy task for a company, and this is the point I want to make out here, that one of the major developments which has come because of this act, that it has provided first time for a detailed procedure of the winding up.